So today's topic is about depression, and I just want to give a little caveat here because when I was reading about this, or in any of the books that you read about depression and with Tibetan Buddhism, is that if you're suffering through a severe episode of depression at the moment, I highly recommend that you listen to what I'm saying and then leave at the meditation, because when you meditate, when you're severely depressed, most of the time it's about how you're depressed and how life is awful, and it's quite hard to pull yourself out of that. So, there's different levels of depression, and if you're kind of on the one that's not in such a deep, dark despair, then this is great and it will help. But if you are suffering from quite a serious episode of depression where it's impossible to find any self-worth, then I suggest you don't participate in the meditation. And also, they do that in retreats as well on the applications. It asks if you have a history of anxiety or depression problems. And I've known people who've had to leave retreats because the meditation, it's like hours of meditation every day. So it's just too much. So make sure to take care of yourself, but of course listen to the information that I'm going to give. And then at the meditation, I'll again give a little warning about it. Okay, so the only thing that we need to know or to bear in mind for the meditation today is somebody who's could use a bit of happiness in their life. So someone who lacks happiness, somebody who's maybe suffering. So I don't know, as we warm the body up or just kind of loosen up, maybe you want to think of somebody that you can do the meditation about. I'm going to roll the head and the back. So if you're lying in bed, you can still do this exercise, I guess, just modify it a little bit. Maybe rolling the shoulders back. All the cracks and the sound that happen. And then changing directions. And then moving from one side to the other. And if you'd like, you can put the knees up and start to rock back and forth. Remember, you can do all of this stuff in a chair. And not all this stuff, but all the meditation in a chair. It'd be hard to do this in a chair. So just find a comfortable spot, because as I've said before, if you can't find a comfortable spot, you're never going to want to sit and meditate, and it's like a disaster from the start. So just sit, lie, whatever you need to do to feel comfortable for the next 20 or so minutes. Okay, so from the Buddhist perspective, what is the underlying cause of depression? And that is selfishness or an egotism. And I didn't even know egotism was a word, but I guess it is. Somebody who's very self-cherishing. And what does self-cherishing mean? Well, it means that we see one's own physical and mental pleasure as more important than anyone else's physical or mental pleasure. And it's important to bear in mind that, I think people get quite defensive, especially in the West, about this concept of ego. And we like to say we don't have an ego, which is ridiculous because we all have an ego. We all have different stages of ego. If you look from the psychological point of view, there's the narcissistic, which is like huge high ego, and then it works itself, we don't have names for all of the different levels, but works itself down from there. There's also different points in our life where we will be more egotistical than others, and sometimes we need to be, so for self-protection measures. So it's not something to feel bad about. It's not something, you can't go turn around to a depressed friend and say, well, it's not nice to go around to a depressed friend and say, your ego's just really big, get over it, man, that's not what it's about. You can't blame anybody for that, because everybody has it to a certain extent. And what it is with people who suffer from depression, from a Buddhist point of view, is that it's an accumulative, an accumulation of selfishness. So it's an unexpected result, I guess. We all have this ego, but sometimes most of the ego is stronger in some people than others, and as a result we become depressed. Because if you think about yourself or somebody else who's gone not even necessarily through a deep phase of depression, but if somebody who is, going through a downtime. Like when I go through downtimes, I don't feel like talking on the phone. Maybe I'm like, oh God, I know so-and-so is having a bad time right now, or I should really call or do this kind of thing. And I don't feel, don't want to, my own suffering right now is more important than anybody else's. And that's totally normal. So I guess as I talk about this, I don't want anybody to think that they're a bad person and that they're to blame about it. It's a normal thing of life. And even, the Buddhists say it's normal. And it's, as I said, one of the afflictions is about having a big ego. And so with meditation, we can start to chisel away at that and lessen the ego and become more compassionate towards other people. So another cause of depression is having a strong dissatisfaction for ourselves. So particularly in the Western culture, and I was born and raised in the States, and I've lived outside of the States for 15 years now, and I've seen many different cultures, perspectives, blah, 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 throughout the world. And I do have to say that the concept of individuality in the States is something I'm not proud of, and something I think is very unhealthy for humans as a whole. And that is, it's the emphasis on number one. You have to have the best grades, you have to have the brightest children, the cutest children, the best car, the blah, blah, blah. And I see quite a lot more in the States than I have seen in other countries, although sadly it is seeping into the English culture, that people will do whatever it takes to step on someone else's back to get to the top. And that's not going to make us feel good. Eventually we get whatever it is that we want. We're not going to be happy, inevitably. And then not only do we have the disappointment of not feeling happy, we have all of these people that we trampled on, that we feel bad about, hopefully at least one day, to get there. So if you think about people we admire, or heroes, like one person I really, really admire is Ellen DeGeneres. And she has that show, The Ellen Show, and she's like, normally whenever I watch it, at some point I have tears in my eyes because of how kind she is to other people and how selfless she is. And, her motto is, if the money doesn't go out, none comes in. So she gives away quite a lot of money to, members of the show or people who write in. And I think she also probably gives to other charities. And like Christian Slater is another person that gives quite a lot to charity. And he's not this big, show-off star or anything. So if you think about the people that you admire and that you view as a hero, they generally do kind things for other people. It's generally not and it's everyone's different, but generally it's not people that are like CEOs of company or I don't know, it's probably controversial to say, but like people like Donald Trump, okay, so he can build up an financial empire and everything like that, but then it collapses. He claimed bankruptcy, and right now he's doing quite a lot of damaging, harmful things to people. And I guess, if you think really in general, more of our heroes do nice things than the big financial or business type things that you quite often have to harm other people in order to get to. Okay. So when you are kind and when you are generous, it's hard to focus on yourself, and when you're in this depression and you're self-cherishing, so I'm more important than everybody else, then you don't see that the outside world is suffering at all, and it's very difficult. You're unavailable for other people. But the good thing about that is, there's always a balance with things, is that you have suffered, you do feel pain, your own pain, and eventually when you come out of it, you can use that pain that you felt to become compassionate towards other people, which is something we're going to work on in the actual meditation session. So it's not all doom and gloom. But so the antidote, as they call it in Tibetan Buddhism, it's always, as everything, it's always in our own mind. Okay, so we want to do this loving kindness. We genuinely want to wish other people happiness and happiness and good things for other people. We want that to radiate. So if we change our mind, we can change our mood. If we are genuinely happy that somebody has had something good happen to them, then we're going to feel good, and then we're going to want other things to be good. So one thing that quite a lot of depressed people talk or do, and this is, the self-talk in psychology. We say it's self-talk. I'm so depressed. Oh, I feel miserable. And if you even watch, I don't know if you can see my body, but the shoulders slump. Even just saying those words, I don't feel that way today. But the world is so hard. It's just awful, and I'm just suffering. It's just I want to end it all. And just as we say that, we can trigger ourselves into a depression. So with practice, with time, with patience, with fighting those thoughts with the self-talk, we say, I'm happy, it's not that bad, look at all of these things that I have. And people, again, don't like when you say others suffer more than me. But actually, if you look at it from a Buddhist perspective, it really makes a lot of sense. And it's not taking away from your own pain, but it's mostly saying other people are suffering. So if we take away more than me, other people are suffering as well. So what can I do to feel like a community, to help other people, to stop other people from suffering? So it's, that's, I guess, and that's where kind of the cognitive behavioral theory comes from, is this Buddhist perspective or philosophy, is the fact that, we need to change our mind. So that's another meditation that you could do. We're not going to do that one today, but counteract those thoughts to be grateful for what you have, and that other people are suffering as well, and what can we do, as kind of a collective community to feel good. Especially now is a great time to do it. I mean, it's easy to see people suffering. There's a lot of people that are dying for crazy reasons, like the gardener couldn't come, and so an older man did it himself and fell off the roof. Like, that's awful, and then his whole family has to deal with that when it's a time where you're not allowed to get hugs and comfort or attend funerals with that many people and everything. So now is a really good time to kind of explore the suffering and see that we're all in this together. Okay, so I'm done with my little spiel, and as I said earlier, if you're just joining us, if you are suffering from quite a deep episode of depression, I would ask you to please come back to this another time and to stop watching, because the last thing that this is supposed to do is to create harm. It's supposed to be helpful. So as we get into our meditation position, whatever that is for you, placing the hands wherever they're comfortable. Closing the eyes or leaving them partly opened, softly gazing in front of us. And as you bring your mind to this space that we're about to enter, I will recite the four immeasurables. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never be dissociated from the supreme happiness which is without suffering. May they remain in boundless equanimity, free from attachment to close ones and rejection of others. So with the compassion for others that this brings, the four immeasurables bring, I want you to go to your open space. It can be preferably somewhere up high, so on a rooftop, on a hill, a mountain, not necessarily somewhere high, because a desert and an open sea also, it's this idea of spaciousness, of endless spaciousness. Creating somewhere safe, somewhere warm, somewhere where we can allow the mind to maybe get a different perspective. So it's slowing down. There's no distractions. Nobody else is in our space. And again, I'd like to reiterate that if at any point you find yourself really going into negative thinking during this meditation, that you bring yourself back to the open space and stop the exercise, or you leave the meditation session altogether. And just to humanize it, I do have to do that at times, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a little bit, we're just feeding little seeds every time. So really imagining the space with the sights and the sounds. Maybe there's some birds flying around, the wind rustling through the trees. Taking deep breaths in and maybe even sighing them out. Bringing our minds to a relaxed, open state. And in this state, I would like you to think about somebody who is hurting right now, somebody who's lacking happiness. And if it feels comfortable, you can put yourself in their shoes and imagine the suffering that they're feeling. Maybe you know why they're suffering. And if that doesn't feel comfortable, then starting to wrap a blanket of love around them. And the Tibetan meaning of love is the wish for the other sentient being, or sentient being is a being with feelings, to have happiness. And in traditional Tonglen meditation, as they call it, you would visualize taking the suffering upon yourself and giving them love and compassion. However, I don't feel, from my psychological professional viewpoint, I don't feel that's responsible of me to lead you into that if you are new to meditation. But if you're not and you're aware of how to do that practice, I invite you to do that. Or after you meditate for some time, then maybe do some exploration into it. What we're going to do right now is wish them all of the happiness that we can. So we want an actual thought and an actual emotion that we're wrapping them around. So a thought, for instance, is maybe they're unhappy because they don't have, they're not happy or secure in their job, or happy or secure with themselves. It's a good one. Maybe they lack self-confidence. So the thought could be, I wish them self-confidence. I wish them strength. I wish that they would see what I see in them, the good that I see. And the emotion linked to that would be confidence, or it could be happiness. And visualize this in whatever way feels good for you. I like to visualize, and I'm actually saying this to the person's mind. And it's kind of like a vision, a ghost or something of that person. And I can see in their heart that it's being filled with happiness. And as they do that, their body becomes stronger, it stands more upright. And as you generate ththese thoughts and these feelings towards the other person, really wishing them only happiness, no suffering. I'd like you to notice how the body feels, your body. Maybe some of the wish for happiness on them is radiating into your body as well. Noticing how this wish of love and happiness can potentially make us feel happy, can make us feel useful, purposeful. spending a moment widening this out, realizing that other sentient beings, and by sentient beings I mean everything, animals, insects, fish, anything that can potentially feel pain and suffering, that everybody is basically the same as this person that we've been focusing on. Generating this love and compassion towards the whole universe. And as we start to bring the practice to an end, take out your rucksack full of the meditation tools. Or if this is the first time you've done it, then get a new rucksack. And place in this ability to feel happiness for another person. Maybe we want to take away the feeling that we have right now, because it does feel good. It's okay to feel good. It's okay to feel happy. And, it's if we do something kind for other people, they're going to feel good, but inevitably we are too, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's the intention. If the only reason why you're doing it is to feel good about yourself, that's an issue. But I would say most humans don't do that. We do that, because we generally want other people to be happy. So packing up the rucksack. And we're going to take it down the hill or into land where our loved ones and enemies alike are waiting for us. And before we open the eyes, I would like you to think one exercise that we can do. So that's called, my teacher, my mentor, has written a book called Urban Meditations, and one of the urban meditations is how sometimes, if there's if you're sharing food with somebody, this is an example because I love food, but there's a bigger piece, give the other person the bigger piece, or give somebody the better one of whatever it is. And I'd like you to think about how maybe you could do that today, or even saying a resolve that you will do that. Be selfless. And as we open the eyes and come back into the awareness of the space that we're in, I'd like to leave you with a quote by Shantideva, who is a spiritual master of the 1200s. If you want to be happy, you should never seek to pleasure yourself. So, based on some of my friends that are probably watching this, that might produce a giggle. You can relate it to whatever way you want, but it's basically saying, if you want to be happy, consider other people's happiness first, and then that's how you will find your own happiness. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to hopefully help make you happy or someone else in your life happy. And I wish you a wonderful day. I will be here